G'day everyone, welcome back to another Toon Under podcast, the Southern Hemisphere's biggest, best one-stop shop for all things Newcastle United, joined again by Jack to celebrate and wax lyrical another huge result for Eddie Howe's injury-prone Mags. Undefeated this week, who would have thought, Jack, with Chelsea, PSG and Manchester United fixtures in a week that Newcastle would go through undefeated and probably should have won all three.
Yeah,
definitely should have run all three.
You know, like under normal circumstances with a full squad, this would have been a good set of results, a fantastic set of results. So to do it with the same 11 players is like, you'll never forget that this week. Like, and it was so close to being even better, being perfect in midweek. But this is probably the best performance of the lot, to be honest. It should have been a lot more than 1-0, which I'm sure we'll talk about, but it's a similar feeling to last week again. You know, you just win. We just win games at St. James's Park. No one can beat us there, apart from Liverpool.
Yeah, it's death taxes and us winning at St. James's Park. So, I guess, we'll get stuck into it. 7 a.m. kickoff for us here in Sydney and Melbourne, which is an unbelievable result on a Sunday morning. I think the only thing better than that would be on a Saturday morning, but I'm not going to be picky and choosy. I'd love that fixture every single weekend. Jack, 6 o'clock for you. So still body clock, you should be up around that time anyway.
Yeah. I'm usually up by then anyway. So my biggest challenge is how to watch it undisturbed without two little kids trying to run it. I just watch it in my bedroom on my laptop now. I'm antisocial. I don't even go to the TV.
Yeah.
So I can watch it in peace. But yeah, no, it's a good kickoff time. The Saturday night games are good, but we tend not to do very well in them. So it's funny watching minus degrees in Newcastle.
Yes, to get to that. Yeah, the -2, I think, was that reports were. Yeah. So absolutely officially freezing over there now, just in time for Christmas. But I don't know why there's not more Saturday night games. It seems like a really good fixture. And whether it's a ratings thing or something like that, I'm not 100% sure. But it just maybe from being in Australia, growing up on the AFL fixture, like there's always 2 games on a Saturday night, and it just seemed like a no-brainer. I think the championship from memory normally has a Friday night game, so I can understand that element of the Friday night, but the Saturday night just seems like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, and I don't even know why this one was on a Saturday night. Presumably it was because Man Utd were playing in Turkey in midweek.
We might get to that later.
Right? Yeah, so I don't know why it was on a Saturday night, but it's good for the away fans, apart from the team's absolutely shit, but good for them to have a weekend and a Saturday night.
Yeah.
Newcastle. And then
notoriously good nightlife as well.
Some of my friends were out at 1 o'clock for an 8 o'clock kickoff. So I mean, they're still in the group chat, and they were getting on it in the Bodega at 1 p.m. So absolutely brilliant stuff. But it's been a big week for them boys as well at home.
Oh no!
One of them was in Paris, and then obviously he was at Chelsea game.
Living the dream.
Yeah, I don't know if he's still alive this morning, to be honest. But the big one.
Check that group chat when we knock off here. But yeah, I'd imagine there'd be plenty of people who would have been fully hydrated by the 8 o'clock kickoff. So, I guess the first surprise, we'll say morning because it was morning for us, but the first surprise for me anyway was Eddie Howe sort of going away from the winning formula. I thought he would have persisted with the 6 fullbacks that done the job quite convincingly in the Carabao Cup. Fully rested from the midweek game, but he opted to go for the unchanged lineup.
Yeah, it was very brave what he did at Old Trafford. Although saying that, it wasn't really. He didn't have a lot of choice. Like he had some big guns on the bench in that game, but we knew that they were going to get rested. So I think to have Kraft and Dummett at the back was a bit of a surprise in that one. But that was an amazing performance. So, like you said, there wasn't really a lot of choice for this one. In fact, there wasn't any choice at all. At least the bench looked a little bit older, a little bit more experienced than
Yeah.
the midweek. Seeing Matt Ritchie on there was pretty exciting, which is not something I thought I'd be saying at this point of the season.
Yeah. I was going to mention, Matt, we spoke last week. It was his babysitting club, but it was good to see he got a bit of help. The kids must have been a bit restless last week, so he called in some more help to try and help him settle him down a little bit. So that was really good to see. But yeah, like I said, unsurprisingly, an unchanged lineup. But the visitors, they had 4 changes, Jack, from their team midweek. Marshall, Rashford, Manu, and Dalot come in for Hoyland, Anthony, Amrabat, and Lindorf. So I think the big surprise was Luke Shaw sort of slotting into that centre back role, and Wan Bissaka and what's his name? The other left back.
Dallo was at left back.
Yeah, Dallo coming in to deal with Almiron and Gordon. So I think most fans, from what I was reading, were happy that Manu was restored back to the starting lineup. I thought he was a bit harshly done by missing out at Galatasaray, but what a luxury to make 4 changes in a team 3 days later.
Yeah, but saying that, it's just not a Man United team. Like, I know that they've been on the decline for a while, and we'll talk about how bad Man United were. You know, they were as bad as we were good. But you're used to just seeing Man United with such strong teams, and you fear them, you know, like, well, we used to fear them. This lot
Everyone did.
Shit.
Yeah.
They're useless. Like, Anthony Martial, they tried to get rid of him last season, and he's had like 8.5 years at Man United now, and he's never done it for them. Rashford, he was just abysmal. Like, the whole team just does not look. And the fact that you've got Shaw, who's a really good left back, playing at centre back, you know, they tried to get rid of Harry Maguire in the summer. He's back in the picture. You've got Varane, you know, multiple Champions League winner, sitting on the bench. You've got the likes of Sancho out in the cold. The whole club's just been run
Van der Beek
so badly
as well.
Van der Beek was back, which I noticed that. Where's he been for 3 years? You know, it's like the whole club is just in such a sorry state, and I don't care about that because it's Man United. But I've got family ties with Man United. My dad was from Salford, and my grandma was from Salford as well, so they were proper Reds. And like, I don't have a soft spot for them, but I was brought up on Man United being brilliant. You know, like they won everything when I was growing up, and my dad and grandma told me all about, you know, the great teams of the past. So, you know, they're a proper club, and it's just a surprise kind of to see the decline over the years. And yeah, we'll get into more about this game, but the team just does not look there's no player there that you would think I would have him at Newcastle, and that says a lot, I think.
Have you read my rundown? That was my next question going to be. There is no, and this is hand on heart, as the teams that played in this game, I don't think I'd swap one of their players for one of our players. 11 for 11. And that's nearly as bad. Not as bad as you can get, but for a team like Manchester United, they're Manchester United by name, but they're not by reputation anymore. No. They don't have any aura. No one fears them. I think Lee put a stat up in the group, like they haven't beaten a top 8 team in like 26 games or something like that. Like that's yeah. Like that's a damning stat. It doesn't matter. The club's rotten to the core. They've got unrest in the boardroom, and it sort of filters all the way down into the players. Some of them performances, like you mentioned Rashford and stuff like that, for someone who's meant to be as good as him, that's as bad a performance I've seen from a top player, probably for the whole season. Like, he was anonymous and then got substituted off probably 20 minutes longer than he should have stayed on, and then just threw the gloves off in an absolute huff when he went to the bench. And whether it's, I think we'll find out soon enough whether it's a player-run club or a coach-run club, I reckon.
Yeah, like the club from top to bottom, like you said, has been on the decline since Alex Ferguson left. But like, it's hard. It's not just on the manager. They've been through all sorts of managers, big names. They've had the fan favorite Solskjaer, like novice manager. They've had the steady British manager David Moyes. They've had everyone since Fergie left, and that none of them can do it. Like they've won a few trophies here and there still, but I think you look at the team, that the tactics. What were the tactics? What's the system? Who knows? Like, nobody knows. And the thing that really struck home for me was they did this last season. It's not that long since they came to St James's Park after the beat us in the cup final, and they did the same thing. They played terribly.
Battered last year as well.
Yeah, and then the game they played today was very, very similar to that. Players in the same positions. Nobody seemed to know what they were doing. Nobody was up for the fight. Like, it was easy. I said on Twitter, that's the easiest game we'll have all season. And apart from the last two minutes of normal time from about 88 minutes when it got a little bit hairy for us just because we hadn't scored more goals. But up until then, it was so easy. Like, it was just a walk in the park.
Yeah, even that 88 minutes, I'd put that down to we were gassed again. Like, there's only so many times you can go to the well. And I did think, actually, that unfortunate injury to Nick Pope, which we'll get to a bit later on, kind of, in a way, maybe helped us, just give us that little 5-minute spell, just get our things together again, get another second win just to push on. I think 8 was maybe a little bit extreme again with the injury. It felt like
9, wasn't it?
Yeah, we'll keep playing until you score, but they had their chances. But we'll get stuck into the game a bit. The first half, like you said, it was a battering. And I said at halftime, it felt like we were winning 0-0 because, like, how we hadn't scored was head scratching with the amount of play we had and the dominance we had, and they gave nothing. Like, they just basically rolled over. And we might get to what we had anyway on our feed here with Paul's goals. I think we just take the Premier League feed, don't we?
It is the Premier League feed,
yeah. So, people will say he might have been scathing, but he was with what he was saying, he was 100% spot on. I couldn't argue with anything. And then I've seen some stuff. I think Ellie McCoy might have had us again on TNT or BT, whatever it is, over in the UK. So I've seen a bit of stuff him on Twitter, and he was 100% right with what he said as well in terms of what Manchester United and what they're doing and what some of the problems might be. But how did you feel at halftime? I mean, we had so much. I think Isak should have scored a couple. Trippier hit the bar, which was very Man City-ish from last season in that position and things like that. How did you feel at halftime? Were you happy, annoyed, kind of annoyed? Like, where did you land on it all?
I felt like we were going to lose 1-0. It just felt like a game where we've absolutely battered them and we hadn't scored. But like we said, we had done this last season as well. We didn't take the lead until the second half. So I think I just felt worried that we hadn't scored yet. But I knew that if we kept playing how we had, like, it's interesting you mentioned Paul Scholes there. He said something really interesting, which was that Man United just turned up and waited to lose. So he was obviously
watching it though. That's
what
how it felt. Yeah,
he looks at it from a very Man United centric perspective, obviously, but he's quite often very scathing and down on Man United because, as you probably would be when you've played in the teams he has and when you've got the standards he has. Les Ferdinand was kind of there for the Newcastle perspective as well. So as bad as Man United were, I reckon that's probably the best first half. It's probably the best we've played all season. We absolutely were all over them, and there wasn't a single player from the first half or from any of the game that you could say didn't play to their top potential. Every single player, apart from probably Pope, who didn't have anything to do except that one save from Garnacho in the first half, but we were just all over them like a rash. And I think you knew we were going to score at some point, but the longer it went on, by half time, you're thinking the players are all going to start getting tired soon because it's the same team we've had for the last 3 games. So there was just that feeling that, and they had Højlund and Anthony, a couple of players on the bench who could maybe make a difference, whereas we didn't have anyone on the bench who could make a difference for us. So there was just a fear that we're not going to get this, but we so deserve it for how we played in the first half.
Yeah, and it didn't. I didn't feel, like you said, threatened at all by anything that they did, and even sort of circling back to what Paul Scholes said after the game, it's like the minimum requirement is to run and work hard. When you play us at home, you know what you're going to get. Like, there's no secrets here or anything. How we play at home, everyone knows, and it's like they just accepted it. And it was too hard. We played on Wednesday in Turkey and things like that. And
the plane couldn't fly, and we had to get the bus.
yeah, Eric Ten Hag mentioned that. I watched an interview pre-game, and he'd mentioned that, that we'd played Saturday, they played Sunday, and we'd played Tuesday, they play Wednesday. Like, he was already making excuses for a performance, and like he's right with what he said, but what he's failed to mention is, yeah, we played Saturday. Like, the distance between our weekend and midweek games were exactly the same. So we had another day to recover for this game, but we had the same 11 players that have played the last 2 weeks as well. It just feels like he's just making excuses already, and and we're a perfect example of this. You can use, and Eddie mentioned this during the week. I can't remember when he said it, but he doesn't want to use excuses to mask things and how it happened. You can use that as motivation to go forward and improve performance, but when you start making excuses, people find excuses, like players and things like that. And Eddie and Ange is the same as well, that they find excuses to be better and improve and drive players. Whereas, Eric's comments before the game were just excuse driven already before we'd even kicked the ball.
Yeah, and when you were talking about Ten Hag there, I was actually thinking, I'm so happy that Eddie Howe doesn't do that. And this is something I've been talking about with a couple of other friends as well. Like, even when he first came into the club and the journalists were trying to get him to talk about the January transfer window, and he said, no, I don't want to talk about that. We've got a good squad here, and I want to focus on coaching what I've got. And now, a couple of years later, he's coached half of those players, more than half of them, into being Champions League players. Like, we were
good Champions League players too.
We were absolutely screwed in midweek in Paris. That could have really knocked us. Like, a lot. I can think of high-profile managers who would have let that fester and who would have thrown the toys out the pram, who would have absolutely lost their minds about that. But Eddie didn't do that. Like, what's the point? There's no point in doing that. It's done. And I was listening to a clip of Anthony Gordon's interview with Jermaine Jenas before the game as well. And he said the same thing. He said, we just need to use that as motivation. Like, it's done. There's no point in sulking about it. Like, we've just got to get on with it now. You're not going to win anything if you're just going to sit there moping around about bad decisions. And Gordon actually said, we don't want to blame referees, if things go wrong. And you can just tell that that's the message that they're getting in the dressing room from Eddie. And then that's feeding through to the players. And that means that when we start the next game, we're prepared for it. We're not thinking about injustices or what happened previously. Trippier said the similar things as well. Like, it's just the mindset of the group at the moment to just forget about that. Let's get on with it and let's go and win the next game, because that's all we can do. Prepare, win the next game, and go from there. And that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, and we've said this. We've probably said this for about 12 months at least. We wouldn't swap Eddie Howe for any other manager in the world right now. Like, forget about the tactics and the improvements and everything like that. Just even based on him and his mentality and the way he operates, you wouldn't swap him for anyone. Like, they say, like, you can judge someone's character in their darkest times. And I know getting a 96-minute equaling penalty at PSG is probably not the darkest times, but compared when you've got a live comparison that's happened 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago, whatever, 3 weeks ago, whatever it was, it mind-boggling the difference. And our situation was 10 times worse than what another red team from London was crying about. And same thing. All right, that's it. It's done. Let's go. We've got another game coming up. Look, they're still talking about it. Like, it's 4 weeks ago, they're still going on about it.
The best thing about that is that every time any Newcastle United post on Twitter now it just gets jumped on by Arsenal. It's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, there's still, but you know what? That comes from Arteta though. It comes because
it comes from the top.
He has made them feel like it's a massive injustice, even though they've released the audio of that. I'll talk about this all night. It's beautiful. Like, I love it. It's absolutely amazing how that's still going on. Like, the Arsenal fans are still buying into it. The comment on every Newcastle post saying, "Oil Club, blah, 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 you know? Like, they're never, ever going to get over it and get on with it.
It is a beautiful thing. But we can't talk about it. We've got much more important things to talk about, like Anthony Gordon. We talk about him every week. The goal, I almost say it was a typical Newcastle goal. This winning possession with a foot in by Kieran Trippier, I think just near the halfway line as well, and then ends up with Bruno kind of at the edge of the box. They did show something really interesting in the Optus post game with Paul Scholes was talking about with Dallo kind of in the middle of the park, way out of position, and he was questioning whether was he meant to be there. Well, if he was meant to be there, and that's the instruction, why is he there? Because if the ball turns over, there's a massive hole, and that's exactly what happened. And Bruno found himself in yards of space at the edge of the box, and he done something really clever because he's a clever player, and this is what clever players do. Instead of rolling, he kept the ball skinny, and then he played in Trippier, who got the foot in, and then continued his run down the field, and just rolled it perfectly across goal first time for our man Gordon to put it again, Jack. So that was, I think everyone's probably read or heard this now. 4-4, the first man to do it since Alan Shearer in 1999 to score in 4 consecutive home games. I don't know what else we can say about him. 40 million is nowhere near enough for a player of his stature, and the fact that his direct sort of competition in the England team was anonymous is even more bewildering.
Yeah, we're just going to repeat what was said last week about Gordon. He just gets better and better, and he just fits the system perfectly. He's got an amazing attitude. I think pretty much everyone has come around now from, who were a bit worried about signing him, and acknowledging that 6 months for him was very important from January to the end of that season. The worst signs towards the end of last season, like I said this last week, he was picking up, but I thought he was gonna come good, but this is spectacular, kind of elite level performance he's putting in at the moment, and to be playing most minutes of every game as well is brilliant. Bruno got the pre-assist again. We talked about that last week.
Yeah,
he always gets the pre-assist. So if there was a stat for that, which I'm sure there probably is, score involvement. He's always like early, or plays the pass before the pass. That sets the goal up. Trippier was back to his best today. Like he had a little bit of a blip a couple of weeks ago, but he's so good. Like he's 33 now. Like it just makes you laugh. Like Man United could have had him multiple times down the years. He's a Man United fan. He's amazing, and he's back to his best, getting assists again. But just a brilliant goal, a brilliant Newcastle United St James's Park goal. What can you say? Brilliant. We should have had more of them.
Yeah, and it's quite interesting. Like probably people don't understand. So Anthony Gordon scored against Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea, and Man United this year in the league, which is really, really unbelievable considering the knock on him was he couldn't score and he couldn't finish before he came, and he's turning into a big game player. And when big teams come to town, he's up for it more than anyone. And I don't even think he could envision the improvement since January, nearly 12 months ago, since he signed to where he is now.
Nah. And it's funny, like people talk about his attitude. That was one of the knocks on him. His attitude's absolutely first class. Like the last season against Brentford, when he came on and changed the game, actually, him and Wilson came on and he was brilliant in that game. And then he got subbed off at the end as a time-wasting thing. And he wasn't happy about that. But like that just shows his will to win. There's a little bit of petulance there, but that's been the only sign since he joined that there's anything that the Everton fans told us about him that he was going to cause problems. He's just been absolutely fantastic, and he's 22 years old. Like, and
that's right. That's the scary part of it all.
You're right about England as well. I don't care about England, but I think it's good for players to get international recognition when they're at Newcastle, because it'll help us sign more players in the future. And you just want your players to get recognised for their good work. And to have him in our number 10 playing like that, for the 5th week in a row, and then to have Rashford, the other number 10 on the other team, who gets in every England squad, it's just night and day, really. Like there's a while before the next international break, but if Gordon doesn't get in for the Euros, if he keeps this up, there's something really seriously badly wrong.
Yeah, I don't know who was upset. Even just thinking back to that Brentford game last year, when he went down, I think he thought he was time wasting as well, like you said, and I reckon there was a lack of communication because Eddie took him off because he thought he was actually hurt, so he was sort of right near the dugout and stuff like that. He's like, "Oh, like come on, like we've got to see this out. Come on, get off. We'll get someone fresh on." And then it all happened really quickly, and he sort of said, "No, I'm fine. Like I'm just chewing clock here. Like don't stress." But that's the environment, though. That's the way the clubs run, and you've got your coaching staff, you've got your leadership group, and everything like that as well. They don't have these problems with people who are unsettling in the dressing room and with bad attitudes and everything like that because they won't allow it. And if you kept going on, then you'd be out the door. And maybe one of the players that we sold in the summer might have been a player like that. And that's why he's not here anymore. So this is what good clubs do. They bring in good people and they just become better and better and better. So,
and Gordon as well is Gordon's one of those, like Trippier as well. Like when we signed him, people were a bit like, "Oh, we don't actually need a player in that position as other priority positions." And now they're probably, our two best players, Trippier and Gordon, or two of the best players. Same with Livramento. We don't need
we'll get
fullbacks.
to him later on.
Why are we signing fullbacks?
Yeah.
This is why we're signing him.
Yeah,
we'll talk about him later.
Yeah. So it kind of, after the goal, felt like a bit of an exhale. I think everyone just kind of went, all right, we've actually got some kind of reward and something to show for the way we played for the first kind of hour. And then game kind of just fizzled out a little bit. Like nothing really happened. I think we sat back a little bit more trying to protect the lead because we knew our energy levels and our fatigue levels were going to start really kicking into gear. But nothing really happened until late on, like you said earlier. Sort of, I think it was mid-80s, maybe 83rd or 84th minute when Reguilon hit that volley, which Shah cleared. I think Pope looked like he had it covered behind him as well, but Pope stayed down, and I'm thinking this happens all the time. This is what we do. And then as soon as he stuck his hand up on the replay from the behind the goal camera, I'm thinking, shit. Actually, I think he's legitimately injured. Like it's the boy who cried wolf. This happens all the time. Eddie, okay, it was the same time. Okay, I think the boys need a quick little reset, get a drink, charge up. We've got about 10 minutes to go. I'll go down. This is what we do all the time. If Eddie wants to change, he can get the messages out to all the players. But no, that all happened. But the unfortunate part was he was actually injured this time, and it sucks. We've completed missing 11 now.
Yeah, it's quite satisfying in a way that we now have a full 11 of missing players, which actually would probably get in the top 10 of the Premier League, I'd say, or maybe even the top 8
comfortably. I think apart, like we spoke this last week, apart from Bruno, I think that team would probably beat the one that played last night.
Probably would. It's two dislocated shoulders in the space of a few weeks. Like it's just next level bad luck. It's obviously especially bad for a goalkeeper. But yeah, I was like you. I thought as Tyndall managed to get a little message onto the pitch again.
Yeah,
because last season there was a game last season when someone brought a note on, and then a minute later he went down.
Yeah,
so I thought, is this happening again? But you could see from the view behind. His arm went up, like his good arm went up.
He knew straight away.
He knew he was in trouble. He just felt his shoulder pop out. So yeah, not good.
So I think we're the eternal optimists on here with Dimmy. There's not real silver lining, but the silver lining is we've got one of the best number twos probably in the Premier League in Martin Dubravka. So he's going to get his chance now it's probably going to be 2.5-3 months by the time they operate it. And being a goalkeeper, your shoulders are really important compared to like a Dan Burn or an outfield player and things like that. So
it won't be like Murphy coming back off the bench.
Yeah, a couple of weeks. No. Yeah. So this is a great opportunity for him. I'm not sure what they planned on doing with him in January, but I reckon all them plans have probably been screwed up and thrown out the window now because he's going to have to stick around at least to the end of the season.
Yeah, and we've had a bit of an interesting discussion in the group chat today about this because some people still feel let down by Dubravka for the fact that he went to Man United last year. I didn't even feel let down at the time, really. Like, I just thought it was a good move for him. It's Manchester United. It's the biggest club in the world, pretty much. How was he supposed to know what was going to happen later on in the season?
I don't think anyone could have envisioned what was going to happen.
And he probably did feel a bit put out that Pope had just been brought in to basically replace him when he'd been such a good player for so long. And him and Maxi pretty much kept us up for 2 seasons in a row. So, like, I don't think if there was any issues with his attitude now, he wouldn't be anywhere near the squad. Eddie would have just kicked him out in the summer. So he's obviously seen enough from him since he's come back in January that he's up for it. He played against Chelsea in the last game of last season and did really well. So he's a really, really competent, really good goalkeeper. He's not as good as Pope, but there's every chance he's going to come in and do a good job. He's probably in his prime years for a goalkeeper as well, maybe a little bit past, but I've got no worries at all about Dubravka coming in for however long it might be. I don't think he'll let anybody down. Yeah,
and even I think Karius is probably not the worst third choice keeper as well.
Yeah.
Like, we've been really this has been probably for as long as I can remember. We've always been really blessed with decent goalkeepers, and considering what the opposition have spent on their goalkeeper and the troubles that he's had since he signed, we can always count our lucky stars that we've always been really good in terms of goalkeepers and stuff. And even just on Dubravka, when he left last year, I think my only, not issue, but the only thing I didn't like was it was a loan, because at the time we kind of needed the money coming in. So I think anytime we get rid of a player, still now, I still think we need some kind of transfer money coming back in to help us out. And I think that was what kind of, it wasn't so much that he'd left, like he could have gone anywhere. It didn't bother me that he went where he went. It was more the fact that we'd let a player go and not actually got anything for it in return when we kind of see. And I think we're still probably in that position now where any transfer out is going to really help us in terms of FFP. So, but I'm totally fine with him when he came back, and he obviously he's seen firsthand what the club was like and knew what our club was like. He probably went like, this isn't the joint for me. I want to go back to where I come from. This is shit.
He won't have been sitting there on the bench today anyway, thinking, "Oh, I wish I was still at Manchester United." I think it was strange that it was a loan though, because especially after Man Utd had fucked us around with Jesse Lingard as well. In our first transfer window of the new owners, where they tried to make us pay a 10 million loan fee or something
for 6 months or something like that.
Yeah, so it's like it was a bit of a surprise, but he's obviously just said at the time he wanted to go, and who can really blame him? Like, I can't blame him. It's fine. Like, and it's good really that it was a loan, because it means we've still got a very good backup goalkeeper for this situation.
We got him back at 6 months. So, and then, so the only the only sort of incident that really happened was the goal that was rightly ruled for offside. Eric, in his infinite management wisdom, decided to play a big slab out up front for the last kind of 10 to 15 minutes to see if you could get something, which is a bit damning for your Hoylands and Marshalls and Rashfords and players like that, when you've had to stick your £60 million centre back up top for 15 minutes to see if he can get his big square head on the end of one. But he did get his big square head in the way, though. That was the problem. So they did have the ball in the back of the net, and it was a very late flag. And I initially thought the offside was for blocking Dubravka's view, and then they showed this beautiful camera again behind the goals, which showed it did actually clip him on the way through. He was miles offside, so that one worked in our favour.
It did, but what a horrible feeling to concede a goal. It's horrible conceding a goal anytime, but to concede right at the end again after the effort after having played. But the thing that made me feel more encouraged was that Maguire just did not celebrate. So the camera went straight to him, and he knew that
he knew.
Hit his stomach. So that was what made me think, right, we're in luck here. The commentators were still trying to big it up, like, oh, it could, is it or not? But you could tell by
Yeah,
the guys' reaction.
they're having a look at this. They're having a look at this.
But it would have been an absolute travesty if they'd scored then, just for
that
how well
happened twice in a week. Yeah,
but I think it just sums up Manchester United that they're playing Harry Maguire up front. They've done it before as well. They're trying to get rid of him in the summer, and he was the fourth or fifth choice centre back. They've brought Johnny Evans back, who's like 100 years old now, and
made of wet newspaper.
Here they are in desperation, lumping it long to
Yeah.
Maguire towards the end of the game. But yeah, it was it's good for us that he was that far up front at that particular time.
Yeah, so the final whistle sounded. So another clean sheet at home, which is great. 1-0 victors, and just doing a bit of research this afternoon. So they haven't beaten us in the league since September 21, which is kind of a bit of a trajectory how we're sort of passing them, going up as they're coming down, which is good. And in all competitions, they've won one in the last 6. So unfortunately for us, that one was a really important one, but I'm not sure if people would take that trophy if they knew that we were going to be on top of them every 3 times after that. So, which is really good. I'll just bring some stats up from the game, Jack. And I think this is a decent reflection. I think sometimes the stats in games can be a little bit misleading and paint a bit of a different picture, but I think these ones are pretty much spot on. Possession was 58-41, 22 shots to 8, and they had 1 shot on target for the whole game. 522 passes to 366, which is also just dominating the ball and things like that. 17 tackles to 15, which you could argue when you've had that much possession, you should probably have less tackles, but I think our work rate, especially at home and our desire, is really good. Clearances 12-28, so it was all hands on deck for them. But yeah, like I said, they are a true reflection of how the game's played. And I found one for you, mate. It was really deep, and I can't explain how deep I was in the dark web this afternoon. And I found this absolute gem from our friends at StatsBomb. The XG for players in the game today, and for those of you who are listening on audio, we have Anthony Gordon was first, Miguel Almiron, Alexander Isak, and the next 2 are the ones that I really want to talk about, Fabian Schär and Jamal Lascelles. There we go. So 4th and 5th highest XG for the game, higher than any Manchester United player, was our 2 centre-backs, Jack.
Yeah, I was going to jump in before, but then I saw this one and I think that might be the XG thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I do like XG. Like this is nice, isn't it? There was also nice stats about touches from our players in their box. Every outfield player touched the ball. That was
on our commentary. Yeah,
I think only two Man United players did.
2 of them did. So
I think it was something like 6 or 7 of our players got more XG on their own than the entire Man United team did. So the stats just back up, and the first half especially was just so dominant. We couldn't get the shots on target, or the ones we did weren't great efforts. So maybe a bit of that has happened before with us as well, where we haven't been quite as clinical. But the big chance we did get, we took it. I thought it might be a game where we're going to be relying on Fabian Schär to dribble through everyone and blast one in or something.
Yeah,
but we didn't.
Yeah. Great segue again. Let's talk about Fabian Schär. If any other centre-back in the Premier League was playing like him, it'd be the plaudits would be just showering this player. But he seems to get nothing, and he can do it all. Like, don't get me wrong, I was starting to get a little bit twitchy maybe after the 70th minute when he started bombing on again with the ball, and I'm like, mate, can just pull the handbrake up a little bit now. We probably don't need you to just keep driving forward. And they kept giving him the space to do it, so he kept doing it. But yeah, I think it was kind of making me a little bit twitchy that last 20 minutes when he kept doing it. But like we can talk about the price and everything like that, but I want to try and keep the value out of it for a second and just purely on field performance. He's seriously like being the top 3 centre backs in the Premier League at the moment.
Yeah, he's got to be. I remember talking about him, like focusing on how good he was 2 seasons ago away at Brentford when he got an assist for Willock when for some reason he was like up front and it wasn't even a free kick or anything. It was open play. But it might be because he's got kind of a languid kind of style. Like he just doesn't seem to draw the attention the same way other defenders do. And maybe it's just because he's a bit older. He's just not fashionable for some reason. But yeah,
but he is fashionable. Like he does everything. He dribbles,
beautiful.
Beautiful. He's gorgeous, and these big cross-field raking passes. Like he is really eye-catching, but doesn't catch anyone's eye.
Yeah, I really don't know what it is about it. Maybe people just, still. Steve Bruce
is it a Newcastle thing? Yeah,
Steve Bruce tried to bomb him out, and he thought he wasn't good enough. Eddie Howe tried to buy him for Bournemouth, so he must have been delighted to get to work with him.
Yeah.
Maybe it is because he's just not quick or something. I don't know. Like he's so good. He's not physically imposing the way Botman is. So when Botman's bringing the ball down and raking 70-yard passes, it's very noticeable because he's a giant doing it. Shaw just looks like a normal stature. Like so maybe that's it.
Ivan Drago about him, just real robotic Botman when he comes forward, and you can still ping him, but like he only scores worldies. He like dribbles 40, 50 yards sometimes with the ball. I still think every time he goes on, and so even when he hasn't got the ball in, whether it's Lascelles or Botman, just kind of like Fab. Oh shit! Fab,
he's doing it again.
He's 40 yards off again. Oh no! And he's like, Longy, come back! Like he does it all the time. But I can't understand how he doesn't get the credit that he deserves.
I don't know. But the good thing is as well, when he does do that, players sit in, so the team are intelligent enough. So like if Shaw's doing that, Bruno will sit back, or Livramento will tuck in or something. So just to make sure that he's not leaving a big gap there. But I think he just does it when there's no passes on for him, and there's a gap. Like the defenders are not expecting our defender to run straight through the middle of them. So
part of me wonders. I kind of think back to a basketball analogy with someone you probably don't know him, Jack, but a guy called Russell Westbrook, who is a great player in the NBA, but shooting's sometimes not his strong suit, but he thinks it is. So teams kind of just don't defend him close and just go, well, we know you, look, shoot. Like, we know you can't shoot. And it's kind of like the teams sort of let him go thinking he's going to bring this up a fair way. If we can nick it back, we can get through him like really easily because he stays up. And like sort of Eddie's like, oh, there's a gap. But yeah, they've left that for you, mate. Like it's a sort of thing that they've planned for you to do, but they're just not good enough. I think it might have happened once or twice after Holland come on. I think Lascelles got back and just sort of ran. I think the pass from Anthony might have been slightly behind him, which held him up a bit, and Lascelles got in behind to snuff it out. But the next guy I want to talk about is a player, and I know we've brought 2 young fullbacks in the summer, and there were less than probably a month ago, people were wondering why did we waste our money on these fullbacks. The question I've got for you, Jack, is do we need to buy another right back?
I don't think we need to buy another right back for probably about 10 years. I mean, at left back, how's that Dan Burn going to get back in the team? I don't think he is.
So we spoke about this last week that I don't know if he walks back in. And then after what happened in Paris and what's happened again in this game, he can't. Like, he's great, and don't get me wrong. Like, we all love Dan Burn, but I don't think he walks straight back into this team now.
No, and it's a different dimension to the team. And this is what we said when it looked like Livramento was going to start getting minutes. Like, it gives the team a different balance because you've got 2 fullbacks now who can bomb forward. And this was the perfect example of that this game. He just brings so much, and he's got it all. He's quick. Like, his recovering tackles are brilliant, timed perfectly. He did one on Garnacho today. Like he gets forward, he can run inside, he can dribble, he's strong. He's just got absolutely everything. Like it doesn't feel like he's too far away from a goal actually. And they're doing this, and he's doing this in big games on his wrong side.
Yeah,
it's no real surprise to anyone who actually knew him. Like this is why we paid 32 million for him, though. It's his potential. Like I said this so many times, he was brilliant at Southampton before he got his ACL injury. He seems like he's got his head screwed on. He's just like he's tuck to it like a duck to water. And Burn, yeah, he's definitely got a fight to get back in the team when he comes back.
Yeah, just the way he dribbles. Like, I don't know if it's a Gordon thing because Gordon takes off straight away. He drags a defender with him, and he just seems to find himself in acres of space on that side. And his ability to, like you said, drive forward with the ball. And people have been crying out for an attacking left back, thinking that was our weak side because everything kind of went down the right with the Trippier, Bruno, Miggy triangles and things like that. And credit, it worked really well. But now we've seen it. I don't think anyone will want to go back to Dan Burn because we've seen how much an attacking left back, even though he's not an actual left back, but a player playing left back who can run with the ball and run at defenders, how different and how much of a different look that gives us. He nearly scored a goal very similar to what he did at Old Trafford. I think he had a chance to pull the trigger. I reckon he took one touch too many and he kind of ran himself into trouble again. But the way he cut in on the left and he should have got the shot away, but he's amazing, man. Like, yes. I know maybe you said because of the ACL and we probably kind of forgot about him a little bit in terms of not us as Newcastle people, but just Premier League fans in general. Like you said, he was great for Southampton and the world was at his feet. And then he unfortunately copped the ACL and he kind of just fell out of mind a little bit. And I think now, yeah, he's reminding everyone who he is and what kind of player he's going to be.
And it helped that he had Rashford playing up against him who just didn't track him, so he could just run forward whenever he wanted. Yeah. This was definitely the game where it's like, this is how good we can be with two attacking fullbacks who are both on form. And you've got Lewis Hall sitting in understudy as well. By the time Trippier does have to slow down or start missing more games because he's getting older, Hall will be Livramento's age, so because he's a year younger, so he'll start slotting in. He can do these things as well. Like when he showed that when he was at Chelsea. He just probably needs a bit longer to settle in, But what a pair of fullbacks we could have. English as well. Buying into what the club's doing. It's seriously exciting for the future.
Yeah, and for all those who are criticising and why do we buy them and stuff like that, just trust the people who are doing this sort of stuff. They haven't let us down yet. I don't think one transfer has let us down, and I'm not going to cop any Tonali talk or Harvey Barnes is injured and things like that. They haven't let us down with anything. So until they do, they should have everyone's trust. And whoever they bring in January, trust they're going to come in and do the job because they're going to be the right player, they're going to be a right person, and it might not happen for them straight away, but it will happen. So I was going to bring the table up, but I forgot to do it, Jack. I'm not going to lie. So I think we're up to 5th now, which I think 3 points off 2nd, which is great. And I think we spoke about last week. If we can just get through this kind of couple or 2 or 3 rough weeks in terms of fixturing with injuries and stuff like that, there's light at the end of the tunnel. So I was kind of doing the calculations after the game as well. Wilson could be probably a couple of weeks away now with his hamstring. That'll give him, I think he was 4 to 6. So another couple of weeks, he could be back in the frame. I reckon maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks, Harvey Barnes should be back in and around the squad. Hopefully Longstaff's ankle's not too bad. He could be back in a couple of weeks as well. So we'll start getting some bodies back. Willock's Achilles, I'm not sure. I don't think they really know. Botman's still a bit of an unknown. I don't think they know that either. It's just to dip your toe in and see if it hurts, and if it doesn't, we might do a little bit more, and we don't have really a definitive time frame. So, but yeah, hopefully, by the end of the month, we do have some bodies back in this team because we can't we can't keep carrying on like this, Jack. We just can't.
Longstaff's been on the pitch, hasn't he? The last 2 games, he's just a bit taller and he's got dark hair now. He's a bit younger. We've got 50 minutes into this review, and it just shows you how impressive and how good Lewis Miley has been. That we haven't even mentioned. It's just it's just normal that he has just stepped in. He's 17 and a half, for Christ's sake. He's a kid. And that this was his best performance. And it's the good thing about Twitter, you get these 2-minute clips that people do compilations afterwards. I can only remember him making one wrong pass in the second half today. But his intelligence to get to be in the right positions, he basically is doing what Longstaff does, which is just an absolutely ridiculously hard thing for someone to do, to step in. It's taken Longstaff 2 years to learn to do what Eddie wants to do. Miley's just coming in and just taking on board the instructions straight away. He glides around the pitch. He nearly scored. He had a shot.
I thought he scored, mate. My heart was in my mouth.
Unbelievable talent. This guy is an unbelievable talent. And to see him at Newcastle, it's just such an amazing thing. We don't want to get too excited about him, but come on. He's really good. I can't remember ever seeing a 17-year-old come in and do this for Newcastle. It's very rare to do it for anyone, to be honest. He's just next level.
Well, he's not a flashy player, but you don't need to be a flashy player in that position. Your main job is to break up play and move the ball to your teammate. And it's very simplistic, but he doesn't try and do anything he can't do. He knows what he can do. He knows what the team needs him to do. And he just does it. And he does it really well, and he does it really effectively. So regardless of, when we do get Willock and Longstaff back, I think this run of game, however long this run of games lasts before we start getting bodies back and whether he gets relegated to the bench and comes on, this is invaluable for him. For his whole career, this could be not the fast track, I guess, but the confidence that he needs to say, right, I've just played against Chelsea, Paris Saint-Germain and Man Utd, and I'm completely competent against players of this level.
Everybody knows who he is now as well, so he's going to start getting attention. If he played for a big club, he'd probably be in the next England squad. That's what happens with young players. But all of these tactics wankers on their Twitter, they love players who play on the half turn, and that's what he does. He gets the ball to his feet, and he's already turning, he's already making space for himself, and that's what Bruno does so well as well. So it's technical ability and football intelligence to just know what to do with the ball when he gets it. Usually it is just popping it off simple, but he did some stuff that wasn't simple as well. There was a really clever header he did in the first half, and then there was a couple of passes where it came to him and he kind of popped it around the corner instead of playing the easy pass.
Yeah, just the one that Isak comes to mind straight away in the second half where Isak didn't think he was going to do it, and he didn't make the run, and he passed it, and Isak went, "Oh shit, I didn't think you could do that," and then he sort of put his hand up. Sorry, mate, I didn't know you could do that. So, look, it's all about, and you got to think as well, Jack. These guys aren't training. There's no time for players like this to train. So Livramento might have trained a little bit at the start of the year, but Lewis Miley, he wouldn't have trained that much because he was still playing some games with the under-21s as well. So with the situation that we've been with, sort of weekend, midweek, there's not much time for training anymore. So the fact that these guys are doing what they did without getting reps on the training field just makes it even better. I know we don't play till later on in the week, but I still think a lot of this week is going to be recovery.
Yeah.
And recovery isn't always bikes and pulls and massages and things like that. You do have to get out and run and move and get the body moving and stuff. But in terms of the training that they would have had last year, this year would be remarkably different.
Yeah, and that's what I mean about Miley's intelligence, that he's obviously being told what to do by the coaches, and he's not really getting a chance to practice it much on the training ground, and he's just doing what they tell him to do, and it's such an intelligent footballer who can do that.
I'll tell you what, this is my you know, when like you say to players like, "Oh, they've made it." Look, there's something that happens, and you go, "All right, then he's arrived, he's made it." Do you know what I think Newcastle's version of "he's made it" should look like? If Graham Jones puts his arm around you at the end of the game, you've made it. Like that's the marker. Like every time they do their lap, he's always got someone in kind of like a half headlock, half romantic kind of arm, and he's like just whispering sweet nothings in their ear and like, oh god, man. And then he had Miley, and I think you've made it now. If Jonesy's got you like that, that's you. And I think we'd all love an arm around our shoulder from Graham Jones every now and then, wouldn't we?
That'd be lovely.
Yeah.
Before you go to bed at night.
Yeah. Probably a bit aggressive before bed, but you know what I mean. But yeah, that'll do, Jack. We honestly, this podcast could go for another 2 hours, and we could speak big ups about every single player that played these last week, and it'll go down in the annals of history as one of the great weeks in the club's history, and as us for supporters as well. It'll go down as one of the great weeks, and cruelly robbed by a referee in Paris. But if you just think about it and think about what we've achieved, it's absolutely remarkable, and it's been an absolute joy to relive it all again with you tonight, man.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
So we'll be back.
We've got, what, 5 days now before a match? That's amazing.
Yeah. So I don't know what I'm going to do with myself for a couple of days. I'm just used to playing and watching and playing and watching. So keep your eyes peeled. We'll have a preview show later on at the end of the week. Hopefully we can get a nice little guest lined up for that. So stay tuned for that. Thanks everyone for watching. Don't forget, if you haven't, comment, like our video. We're still trying to push into 1,500 by the end of the year. So if you haven't subscribed, please do. If we bob up on your YouTube feed and stuff like that. If anyone knows how to work the algorithm, slide into our DMs. That'd be much appreciated as well. So that'll do us tonight, Jack. You have yourself a good week, mate, and do it with a smile because it's been bloody good.
Cheers, Keeg. See you soon.